Man, that shit was scary. What makes Silent Hill so intriguing was the subversion of the early horror game genre. Oh, go fuck yourself. The early days of horror was pioneered by the advent of survival horror, games like Alone in the Dark. Okay. Oh, this is real. This is really happening. He just came out of nowhere. What's he gonna do? Clock Tower, and especially Resident Evil changed the game. Many early horror games were traditionally action-adventure games with spooky elements, but none had really dug deep into the idea of what made something scary. Silent Hill is one of the first to dig deep into the psychological. Well, yeah, the external was still definitely there. The internal, can you get the fuck? The internal was definitely more terrifying. The basic layer of the story is centered around Harry Mason, a single father taking his daughter on vacation in the town of Silent Hill. But as in most horror games, shit gets crazy like that. The deeper layers of the story is where the real stuff is. There's themes of some not so savory stuff. Bullying, the occult, drugs, abuse, murder. You know, not so fun stuff. What made Silent Hill into this dreamlike nightmare? Silent Hill is one of the very few games that get you asking questions about your experience. Still, to this day, it just lingers in your thoughts. You know, if you actually played the game before. Silent Hill is kind of funny, in a dickhead kind of way. The game toys with you constantly. It likes to scare you with loud sounds. It will often teleport you to a different area. Wait. How'd I even get here? Sometimes you're expecting something to happen. It just doesn't. This game's a jackass. What I think is very interesting is the use of the fog. The fog works in both a metaphysical and metaphorical sense. Big words, I know. The fog obviously blinds you and keeps the player in a sense of danger at all times. It also keeps the player, yeah, you, keeping you lost within the world, as well as blinding you from the truth of the events in the town. If you're from America, and truthfully, if you're on my channel, you probably are. The town is also very similar to many US towns. There are stores, there's a police station, a hospital, a school, a hellish metallic version of the same exact school, so it's probably a high school. The town is designed in a way where you build a sense of familiarity with the location. But make sure you get those maps for good fucking luck. What makes Silent Hill externally scary is turning the normal into the abnormal. Since the central environment is based on reality, making these seemingly basic and boring things abstract and deformed, it just kinda creeps you out. The story is also creepy in total, but I don't want to ruin the things for people who haven't played this 20-year-old game. I think it's one of those pieces of media that just is best served going in blind. The best thing about video games in general is the sense of control, and this is a big distinction between film and games. In a film, you are a spectator to an experience, where you have no connection to it or no control over it. In a game, you're controlling the person on the screen. So when you're actually scared watching a film, like what are you doing, get out of there, those internal thoughts, in a game, you actually have to move the person on the screen, which is quite a surreal experience. The idea of an invisible horror is quite creepy. I mean, obviously, we know Silent Hill has some troubled history, and not being able to see who caused it or what caused it is quite an unsettling feeling. It's odd to feel unnerved by something we cannot see, but the town plays with us so much that we can't even trust our own senses. The cast of characters give life to the town, which has very little to none, besides demons and shit. Each of them are driven by certain goals. Some are noble, and some of them are very, very, very much the opposite. While they do talk like they're reading a presentation for the English literature class.
Hold it. Where do you think you're going?
My daughter. I've got to find her.
Who talks like this? We can see and hear they treat other people, which gives them a larger sense as characters. It's also very interesting that both the player and Harry share a similar sense of who to trust. It connects Harry as both a character and narrative device for the player. It's time to talk about this important part of any video game, the graphics. Unironically, this game looks great for a PS1 game. The lighting and overall presentation is stellar, and the fact they did all this on the PS1 hardware, it kinda just blows my mind. This is also a big thanks to the fog, which helps with the render distance and keeps the frame rate smooth. I do think that the combat is what the game suffers the most. The combat in this game is less than desirable. This kind of ties into the control of the game. Harry's movement is based on tank controls, which means that up on the D-pad will always be forward, no matter where he is facing. This can create a lot of tense situations, trying to control Harry as well as fighting the demons. This is both a good and bad thing. It's quite realistic. If you were actually in Silent Hill, you wouldn't just run in doing crazy stuff. You would probably stand your ground and minimize the damage you take into yourself. On the other hand, it's just really kind of boring. Most of the combat could be just standing in the corner and swinging your melee weapon, or just shooting shit. The puzzles are Silent Hill's main gameplay aspect. The main areas involve lots of puzzles. I mean, a lot of them. Many of them make sense on a quick glance, but some of them are just... especially this piano. This fucking piano. Besides a few, I really enjoy this game's puzzles. They really make you think, and since it's a big portion of the game, you better grow to like it. I think the breaking point for Silent Hill is right when you get access to the hammer. The beginning portion of the game is really tense, since your melee weapons are slow and often lack a lot of range, and ammo is limited. This makes you fearful of using your weapons and engaging in combat. But when you get access to the hammer, all the tension just kinda goes out the window. You can basically now two-shot any enemy that isn't flying around. Like, goddamn, I feel like I was the main threat. But this is a problem. If the survival horror game is really easy to survive in, it makes the whole experience way less fun and loses that tension aspect. Going back to horror for a minute, the game was one of the very first to toy the idea of the psychological, the inner mind. As stated before, the game toys with you externally, but it also messes with you internally. The themes of the game aren't too pleasant at all. So by giving you a front row seat to seeing what some of the worst of what people have to offer, could someone be really driven enough to do these things in real life? I've made this whole segment its own video, but I won't. For now at least. Akira Yamaoka really killed the whole soundtrack. His use of ambient drones and melancholic tones are superb. Don't get started on his percussion work. His use of the bright and metallic percussion both unsettle and add groove to what you really shouldn't have. A groove to it. I think he deserves all the credit he gets as a composer. The noise present in the game is both dense and hollow at the same time. The main noise you'll constantly hear is from the radio.
What's that? Huh. Radio. What's going on with that radio?
It signifies when enemies are near, both being a danger and a call of safety. The droning of the wind and other sounds create an atmosphere of dread, just filling in the player's thoughts of what could be hiding in the fog. Silent Hill is one of the games you just need to play. Although it's slightly dated in its gameplay design, it was something that I'm very glad to experience. It was nice to step out of my comfort zone and to play one of the grandfathers of the modern horror landscape. With its sequel's remake that just came out, I hope that more people will be summoned to Silent Hill, and I pray for the newer games that are going to be released soon live up to what the original 3 games had established.